beyond Iran. The first country I remember calling a home, a true home, where I wasn't living in my grandparents or living in my father's commercial space, or not commercial space, but housing where he
Yeah.
used as a businessman. So the first place I remember calling home is Cyprus. This gave us a lot of comfort. Cyprus gave us home, gave us equality, it gave us our dignity back. The Cypriot people would share, even if it was a piece of bread, we would sit at the table and share it together. And eventually, when I was doing my master's, the year was 97. My parents had already moved back. I graduated, and I came for Christmas holiday, and I fell in love with the country. And it was just coming out of civil war. There was so much hope. There was so much. There was dreams. It was being rebuilt. There was a whole new era of Lebanon and its greatness, and we rode that wave for a very short time. Unfortunately, we put all our hopes in, and we slept, and we woke up, and our life was never the same again. Israel had started bombarding and what I thought was the end of the horrors was when the horrors just began. And from there onwards, I cannot tell you, I have never had a journey filled with so much dread and fear and the smell of death. It was like the angel of death was chasing you. We were on a protected bus with a security code on it, and there was cars who were riding the wave behind us, hoping they'd get through. Families being bombarded. A car at the front of the bus with a mother and the grandparent and some children, and the car behind us had the rest of the family and the children, and they just bombarded them. They demolished homes, they demolished hope. And I mean, Cyprus will always be home, but do I feel betrayed? Of course I feel betrayed. I feel we built the city together. I feel we built the country together. I feel like if you see the kids who don't know what's going on from the ages of 2 to 13, the panic in each one, and there are different ways of them trying to, why should I have to run again? Why should I pull these children away from their roots again? I've spent a lifetime searching for my roots. I spent the past 4 years doing philanthropic work. My father is extremely sick. Do I leave him behind and go? What are these choices I'm being asked to make? It's horrific. Where is the world? I will not let them bring me to tears. I will not let them take the last of my dignity, because they have taken everything, but they cannot take my dignity. They cannot take my hope, and they cannot take my love for everything that this country stands for. I won't allow it. I will not allow it. So,
Right. It is what's the day today? Tanaz? Thursday
it's a
evening.
Thursday.
It's a Thursday evening. And I'm sitting here in conversation with Tanaz Agha. I'm not going to say interview because it is not an interview. It is a heart-to-heart conversation with one of my childhood friends. We basically grew up together.
We have indeed.
We've known each other for more than 40 years now.
Correct.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk about, you're now in Lebanon, I'm in
Yeah.
Cyprus, and I want to talk about our history, your past, despite the fact that you came over to Cyprus in the 1980s with your parents as a
Yeah.
refugee from Lebanon when Israel was bombing Lebanon again. You are not from Lebanon. You are originally from what is now Iran. I still like
Correct.
to call it Persia for some reason, but it's
So do
Iran.
I. So do
Yeah,
I, for
okay.
so many reasons. But that's
Yes.
a whole different heart to heart. Good evening,
Yes.
Melanie. It's such an
Good
honor to be
evening.
here this evening, and I'm very although I wish we were meeting under better circumstances, I'm humbled and honored to be able to share my story with you, to give some kind of light onto what it is to go through such an emotional, traumatic, hard experience, and let the world watch it and allow it to happen. So I'll start at the very beginning. I'm a
Yeah.
Persian. My parents are originally Persian, both of them. From the maternal side, they have always been in Iran. From the paternal side, my father's family moved here in the early 50s, very early 50s. My father was born and bred in Lebanon, so he
So
considers himself.
basically, your father moved from Iran to
My
Lebanon
fa-
in the
my
50s.
father was
Okay.
born in Beirut. My father was
Okay.
born in Beirut. My father's family had moved here. We're textile traders, and we've always lived close to trading ports. And back then, also, there was trouble. There was strife in our region, and Lebanon was the most commercial port which was available to us. And so my father's family moved here. My parents got married in the early 70s. And my mother was a university student, and my father was an entrepreneur and a textile trader, which he is until this day. And they got married and moved to Beirut. My mother joined my father here in Beirut. They were pregnant with my eldest brother, had my brother, and the war broke out. They struggled and they strived and they stayed here for a while. They had already run away from Iran after the revolution. That's a whole long other story. It's a story on its own, which might take away from the story of tonight, which is a focus on Beirut, Lebanon, and what we're going through currently now. So they were in Lebanon, and having already fled from Iran, they could not go back there. Our family were all over the place, from London to LA to distributed, but yet my father needed to be in a port, and Cyprus was very close to Beirut. My grandfather at this stage was already not in the greatest of health, and my father is one of six siblings, of which most of them had stayed in Beirut. They were still at university age, and so they were still living in Beirut. They chose Cyprus. So in the early 80s, prior to that, we had moved around. We had lived in London, we had lived in Italy, but this was always on the run. The first country I remember calling a home, a true home, where I wasn't living in my grandparents or living in my father's commercial space, or not commercial space, but housing where he
Yeah.
used as a businessman. So the first place I remember calling home is Cyprus, and the first, in fact, Foley's, my school, where I grew up, where I found my family, where I have found my friendships, like my friendships with you. And let me tell you, although I don't have any memories of, firstly, I wasn't born when the civil war took place in Lebanon. Secondly, I don't have memories of running away that very first time, but I do have memories of the struggle of my parents, the struggle of getting lines. I remember every morning driving to school, and my father would listen to the news, the Lebanese news channel, and it would have, of course, a theme song, and we would know that depending on what this crackling theme song would bring after it, that would determine what the quality of the day would be like for us. I remember not being able to call home, not being able, my father would have to really struggle to be able to get a call through to Beirut. Please interject at any time to ask me, to explain, to
No,
clarify,
I'm
slow
just
down.
listening. No, I'm listening. I'm listening. I'll
Yeah.
ask you. Yeah, I'm listening.
So I
So basically
remember,
you went, yeah.
yes, tell me, ask me.
No, no, no. Go on, go
Yeah,
on, go on, go on. Go
so we
ahead.
went Iran, Lebanon, Italy and London, moving around. But Cyprus, we settled. We went to Fodis. So we were in Cyprus when the civil war was at its worst in Lebanon. We were slowly, a community of Lebanese was coming along. At first, it was just a handful of us, and we were really taken in by the Cypriot community, like really like brothers and sisters. As in, you know very well, Melanie, and I'm sure that your viewers, most of them will know the amazing bonds and ties I have to the Cypriot people. And as our community grew larger and there was more Lebanese, we felt like we became integrated within Cyprus, one and the same. There wasn't really much difference. I would never, it's an island which was a touristic island, so we would have tourists and we would look at them like foreigners, and they would come for a summer season and they wouldn't maybe resemble us as much, but we would stand in solidarity together like locals. And this gave us a lot of comfort. Cyprus gave us home, gave us equality, it gave us our dignity back. The Cypriot people would share, even if it was a piece of bread, we would sit at the table and share it together, be it at school, be it with a taxi driver, be it with a president, be it with whoever it might be. Our connection was always on such a humane level. Over the years, we grew up, we stayed in Cyprus, we called it home. Um, I never thought I would come back to Lebanon. It was always on the cards. It was always that distant place where we would only hear hardships, crying, sadness. We'd hear, we'd hear things in the backgrounds of telephones. Um, I visited once or twice as a young child. I remember being in a toy shop and choosing lipstick with my grandfather in Hamra Street, in a toy shop he used to like to take me to. And the bombing was really heavy. And I couldn't decide which color I wanted pale pink or pale purple. I still have the lipstick till today. And my mom kept saying, hurry up, hurry up. And my granddad said, no, it's okay, it's fine. This is normal. And I was very young, and I remember thinking, how is this normal? But, let me buy the time and, buy my lipstick. I'm maybe 5 or 6. This memory stayed with me forever. And Cyprus always gave me that safety that I'd never have to live like that. Fast forward, university, then marriage. And my parents moved here when I was doing my master's.
When did you eventually move back to Lebanon?
Okay.
You're cutting up. It's not your voice. Your voice is fine. It's just that the picture is cutting up, but we don't mind.
Okay. So
I was expecting this anyway. Yeah, because before I'll just like to tell the viewers that before we started, the electricity went and you had
yes.
to put the generator on, right?
Yes.
Because
Correct.
you also have issues with the electricity. So
Correct.
I'm sure that the viewers won't mind you the picture
Coming and
cutting up a
going.
little bit.
I'm sure they
Yeah,
don't want
yeah,
to see
but
my face anyway. My voice is more than enough to handle.
we can hear you just fine. At least I
Good.
can hear you just fine,
Okay.
so that's okay. Well, what I
Okay.
wanted to ask you, so you were here from about 1982, if I'm not
From
mistaken?
1980, from 1981, 1981 until
Yeah.
1994, I was in Cyprus. I did all my schooling in Cyprus, and in
And then,
94,
and then you went to
yeah,
study abroad, and then you went back to Lebanon, right?
yes,
When
I
you
was,
got
I
married.
was exactly. I was studying in the UK, and my parents every summer of my life had said, "This summer we're moving to Beirut," always hoping that they'd be coming back home. And eventually, when I was doing my master's, the year was 97. My parents had already moved back. I graduated, and I came for Christmas holiday, and I fell in love with the country. And it was just coming out of civil war. There was so much hope. There was so much. There was dreams. It was being rebuilt. There was a whole new era of Lebanon and its greatness, and we rode that wave for a very short time. Unfortunately, we put all our hopes and dreams in the country, and we rode the wave for a very short time, and we invested everything in the country. Forget money. As a youth coming back as expats and leaving opportunities abroad, we came thinking, bear with me for a second, we came thinking we could make an impact and we'd make a difference. And for a while it was okay. There was ups and downs. We always had. I remember once I was working in management consultancy, and we were opening warehouses, larger regional warehouses, and it was the opening day, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was on the project with me and my boss, and we were meant to open the warehouses, and they were bombing. And they were shooting us from Israel, and I could see. I lived opposite the Pigeon Rock, which is really famous. I could see the shooting, and life was going on as normal. And I had promised myself, I said to myself, you know, this won't be the same for my kids. I know I'm going to make a change. We're going to make a change. Look at the things we're doing. We're going to make a difference. And, technology was improving. We were telling our stories to people who lived outside. We'd been to university, we'd lived abroad, we'd lived with people of all nationalities, religions, classes, all kinds of backgrounds. So we'd write letters. We possibly had started email at this stage. So we felt like, this can't be it. And then after that, so much happens. It's almost like the trauma blanks episodes in it. We had a lot of strife within the country itself. We had a lot of strife economically, politically, and then we had Israel again. 2006, I remember I was planning my wedding. Where I was planning my wedding. Another very good friend of mine, who also a Lebanese who married a Cypriot, actually, we were all in the midst of planning weddings. Things were being cancelled. Friends were scared to come. You could feel the tensions rising. And then one night, the start of the summer season, I'll never forget. I used to work very hard. I used to be, call me a nerd, call me what you will, but I was the kind of girl who would definitely have to
A
wake up early
workaholic,
for work.
yeah,
Yes, I'd have to wake up
yeah.
early for work. So no matter what, if it wasn't a non-working day, I would probably be at home sleeping. Everyone was out. Start of the summer season in Lebanon is huge. And we slept and we woke up and our life was never the same again. Israel had started bombarding in a way that, sorry, I might messages coming through. Israel had started bombarding us, and overnight we had slept, we had woken up, and we had nothing. No one in the world was willing to help us. None of the embassies. I'm going to say it right out there. The British, the Americans, they gave us promises. They said, I'm not Lebanese, although I have a Lebanese nationality. That's not my only nationality. So many of the governments promised us. They were like, we'll evacuate you. We'll do this. We'll do that. No one really evacuated us. No one gave us help. We'd call embassies and there'd be recording machines. The world was turning a blind eye as Israel was bombarding us so very heavily. We had to run in buses. I'll never forget the Cyprus government. I'm not Cypriot, but my family is. And the Cyprus government sent help. They brought us all together in a parking lot in a central area in Beirut, all the Cypriot nationals. And we were scared. We were scared to get on the bus. People were dying on the way to evacuating, and we were too scared to catch those buses. My father was abroad, and we had to make rash decisions, and we chose not to ride that first bus. We got stuck in Beirut. Bombardment became heavy, very heavy. I remember my mum telling me and my sister, well, this is it. I'm going to have to throw you into the back of the car and you're going to shut up and I'm going to drive like a maniac and I'm going to get you to safety. And she threw us in the back of the car and we drove a bit outside of Beirut to very good friends of ours who gave us shelter, whose homes were slightly further up in the mountain in a very residential area, still very close to Beirut, in an area called Rabia. A very wonderful family. I won't name names. They know who they are. A very wonderful family who gave us shelter. And from there, the Greek embassy intervened and the Cypriots intervened together with the Greeks to offer us next round of buses to get the Lebanese out. And what I thought was the end of the horrors was when the horrors just began. And from there onwards, I cannot tell you. I have never had a journey filled with so much dread and fear and the smell of death. It was like the angel of death was chasing you. We were on a protected bus with a security code on it, and there was cars who were riding the wave behind us, hoping they'd get through. Families being bombarded. A car at the front of the bus with a mother and the grandparent and some children, and the car behind us had the rest of the family and the children, and they just bombarded them. They demolished homes, they demolished hope, and I don't know, I hope this is still recording because I can no longer see your face and I can just see that it's recording, but these are my experiences as a city girl living in Beirut.
I am recording. I've just
Yeah.
put you to the front, yeah. Um, I mean, everything that you have just described, it's playing out again, basically, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And what people, I mean, how many times must the region go through this over and over again? And with Israel having impunity to do whatever it wants within the region. Give me a little bit of, yeah, give me a little bit of what people are saying now on the ground in Lebanon.
There's
A minute,
there's
because
a
you're breaking up.
Yes, there's a lot
Yeah,
of fear
go.
in Beirut. We're scared. There's lots of fear in Lebanon. I mean, I'm telling you a story of someone who lived in the city and who was not subjugated to the worst of what the rest of the Lebanese were subjugated over the years or now, be it the north, be it the south. Beirut's always been somewhat protected to a certain degree because if Beirut is directly hit in areas which they cannot call stronghold of X party or Y party, then maybe the world will have something to say. However, the situation is dire. The bombings are all over the place. When they say the southern suburbs of the city, our city is tiny. I live just off the green line of the old green line. So I'm very central within the
When
heart
you
of
say when you say green line, you mean
within
when
Beirut, the civil
When
war.
Israel invaded and took over southern Lebanon. Basically, the green line is
That
where,
no, that's the blue line. They have a
no,
blue line in the south of Lebanon.
that's the blue
The,
line. Sorry.
yes,
Okay, what's the green line?
the green line is
So,
the line which separated East and West in the Civil War. So our
okay.
so I'm strategically placed between all the different religions and all the different political factions. So although it's not the heart of Beirut, which is downtown, I'm in a location where, I mean, the bombing today, I felt and hurt it. They call it the southern suburbs, the stronghold of, these are huge commercial residential areas. I have friends like you and me who have sandwich shops, who have their family living there. I have people I interact with on a daily basis who are not Hezbollah, and I don't want, I am not in a place to discuss politics or say anything, but your normal, ordinary civilian, someone who's my kid goes horse riding with, someone who my kid might be at school with, someone who's related to someone who I work with. You know, these are people I eat dinner with, I come and go with, I live a life with. I've never asked them who their political faction is or who they represent. And these bombings are happening in these residential areas, children missing, young babies missing. What are these young babies doing to you? How come you can be so strategic? Today they shot someone they were after through the windshield while he was driving and caught just him. Where's your strategy now? How can you bring a building down and a whole residential area down? Suddenly you can do such a strategic, precise military operation on an individual in a moving car. No, these are choices which are being made and which are being allowed, and which the rest of the world is now seeing, because you can't tell me they're not seeing it. If you're not seeing it, it's because you don't want to see it, and you don't need to be on social media in order to see it. You need to just be alive in order to see it. And it doesn't make Gaza okay. It doesn't mean Lebanon's. I mean, none of it is justified. None of it is justified. Years and years of oppression, years and years of being colonized, years and years of being suppressed, even within the region, within by our own brothers and sisters. I mean, Cyprus will always be home, but do I feel betrayed? Of course I feel betrayed. I feel we built the city together. I feel we built the country together. I feel like, and the rest of the Gulf countries, the rest that are allowing all of this, the powers that be that allow us to be the scapegoats for the rest of the region, because they can put their finger on us, because we are resilient, because we do make good news stories, because when we're not dying, we are partying and showing the best of the best, so they can occupy us and still live their way, but subject us to oppression. No, I'm sorry. There has to come a time when we say, no, enough is enough. The other night I was at home. My sister's an activist. She works very hard. She's on the ground. She raises money. She good times and bad times, whether the problems are internal or external. Very
Mhm.
giving person. The other night I was alone with our children at home. If you see the kids who don't know what's going on from the ages of 2 to 13, the panic in each one, and it's there are different ways of them trying to, why should I have to run again? Why should I pull these children away from their roots again? I've spent a lifetime searching for my roots. I spent the past 4 years doing philanthropic work after the explosion, giving back all my time, energy, and every second of my uh, breath and space and thought to the arts of Lebanon, so that I could show that we are not a militia. We are not the terrorists. We are a country of great beauty, of great art, of great education. The center of so much of what civilization is because of what has been found here. And now
Yeah.
again, I'm back to square one. Now again, my children are crying. Mommy, we don't want to go. Mommy, I don't want to leave my friends. Mommy, I have 4 years of school left. Please let me. How do you explain to a 13-year-old who's lived all her life here that it's so banal, but Mommy, how can I not graduate with friends I've been with since I was a baby? Or a 10-year-old, Mommy, will you be alive when I finish school? Or a 2-year-old, what is that? I don't like that sound. I don't like it. What do you do? My father is extremely sick. Do I leave him behind and go? What are these choices I'm being asked to make? It's horrific. Where is the world? I will not let them bring me to tears. I will not let them take the last of my dignity, because they have taken everything, but they cannot take my dignity. They cannot take my hope, and they cannot take my love for everything that this country stands for. I won't allow it. I will not allow it. So it's hard, and the world needs to hear, and the world needs to feel with us, and the world needs to just see black and white, right and wrong. There's no questions. It's not October 7th. It never was. Open a history book. I don't know, go to school. Maybe they should have more teachers like the teachers we had, who expanded our minds and asked us to read, ask questions. Don't
and have
believe
critical
everything you're
thinking,
told. Sorry?
and have critical
Yes,
thinking.
critical thinking. Ask yourself, if it doesn't make sense, ask yourself, why doesn't it make sense? Because at any age, you can see, I mean, when it's so transparently obvious, at any age, it's clear. But when you're a slave to the system, and when you're um, so so wrapped up by what they have you distracted by, social media, 15 seconds attention span, media putting out news in the language that they want to put out the news. It's very different if I call you up and say, Melanie, we've just been bombed, my friend John has been bombed in his sandwich shop. And it's very different if I say, Melanie, my friend John, he lives in the Hezbollah stronghold where they eat little babies, but he's been killed. I mean, what the
Yeah.
hell? Do you know what I mean? Language makes all the difference, people. Open your eyes and see the wool being pulled over your eyes. Wake up. It's us
One
today,
of,
it will be you tomorrow. I'm sorry to say this. Israel has no limits. They will take us one by one like dominoes.
I totally agree. I was having a discussion at this lunchtime on Saskia Unreserved, which was
Yes.
is it's radio program on Rick Classic, and I said exactly this, that um on their why can't we see, why can't the rest of this world see what they are actually saying? Because if you listen carefully to what Israel is saying and what they are doing what they are saying. So when they say that they will take all of Gaza, all of Palestine, all of Lebanon, when Daniela Weiss, whatever her name is saying that it's huge, it's all ours, part of Jordan, part of Iraq, part of Syria, part of Egypt, from the Euphrates River to the sea, is part of Greater Israel. And this is the entire plan. And they have been saying it for ages, for years, and now they are saying it publicly. They might have said it in their own Zionist groups before.
Yes.
Now it's on social media, it's there publicly. Why don't we see this? Why don't we understand? And what they are doing now, not just Israel, what America, what the powers
Yes.
that be are
The
doing
powers that
now
be.
to Palestine and to Lebanon, if they can do it to Palestine and they do it to Lebanon, if we one day decide that we rather we make a decision which is not to their interest, which is not in their interest, we could be the next Lebanon,
And
we could
it
be
will
the next
happen for
Palestine.
sure.
And this is what people don't understand. Um, what are your next steps?
Also, firstly, I'd like to clarify something. I'd like to
Yeah,
say that I appreciate that you make the distinction between Israelis and Jewish people, because this is not a fight of religion. This really
no,
isn't.
it's not.
No, this is
No, no,
a fight
no.
of a terrorist state which has um,
Tanaz,
no
the fact,
reflection on the true reality, same as no terrorist group represents any religion. This is a terrorist group. Israel is the only terrorist group in this conversation. And
right. So,
they're not
and the other
welcome
thing
here. My next
I
steps.
wanted to stress is that the fact, right, I'm going to say it and I don't care what it sounds like.
Yeah,
The fact that Israel has put the Star of David on their tanks and at the same time the Star of David is in their flag, they are the ones who are creating anti-Semitism.
yes,
Because when somebody sees a tank running over their entire family with the Star of David on,
sure.
immediately the relationship between a religion and a state is being made. No, Israel does not represent all of the Jewish people,
No,
and I've spoken to Jewish people. I mean, there are Jewish people who are famous on standing up for Palestine, like
exactly.
Ilan Pappé and Gabor Mate and Norman
For
Finkelstein and
so many.
Avi Schlein.
Yes.
who was born in Iraq actually, but he was an
Sephardi
Arab.
Jews are closer to us
Yeah,
than any other. I mean, it's so
yeah.
sad. It's
So
so sad.
this is not the fact that this state was created as an ethno state is racist
Yes,
and apartheid to begin with. So
correct.
you are beginning,
Precisely that.
I mean, you are beginning with an ethno state. What is
The
this? A state
foundations are already the
are
foundations
already
are
laid
already
there for
filthy.
being racist. Yeah.
Ah,
And speaking up against, I mean, I speak up against the British, and I'm half British. You know that my
yes,
mum's English.
yes,
I
yes.
mean,
I do know that.
that does not make me anti-British
No, of course not.
and
Of course
or
not.
anti-Protestant. I have been speaking up against the Cypriot government, and I
That does not
have.
make you anti-Cyprus for sure. Not
It
definitely.
doesn't make me anti-Cypriot, and it definitely does not make me anti-Christian Orthodox, which is the religion
Exactly.
which is mainstream in Cyprus.
Exactly.
If I speak up against Iran and what they are doing to women and
Yes.
the whole system there
Horrific.
and the oppression, that does not make me Islamophobic.
Exactly.
In the same way,
Exactly.
speaking up against Israel is not anti-Semitic.
Exactly.
On the
But they use
contrary,
that, don't they? They that's how
on
they
the contrary,
brainwash. They
what
hide behind.
Israel is doing now, and the fact that Israel is saying that they are protecting and they are the protectors of the Jewish people, that is
Yes.
anti-Semitic because they
Agreed.
are not.
100%.
They are actually putting their own people in danger at this moment
Agreed.
in time.
100%.
Yeah. So
Agreed.
yeah.
100%. My
So
next step.
what are your next
Um,
steps?
okay, so our schools have all gone online. We're now doing something they call asynchronous and synchronous learning, which means that people, if they do, if we do manage to come back and there's still families outside, basically it's not for a week or two. It's going to be longer, the expected timings. And a lot of the schools have already closed here because they've taken in the families which have been displaced from the south. And there has been thousands and thousands of them living rough in schools, living in streets. So our next step is to try to get a flight out. The flights have been insane. All flights have been cancelled. The only carrier coming going is mostly that our domestic Middle East airlines, and it's impossible to get seats. Today, just today alone, I've had maybe 4 different reservations, and all of them have been cancelled. Would I leave if I didn't have young children? No, I would stand my ground and stay here. Do I fear that I won't? They're not tiny enough for me to carry and run with, and therefore, oh God, I have to. I don't want to leave, but I'll have to try my best to get myself out of here somehow on a flight. And my destination would be Cyprus because Cyprus is my home and it's always been my home. And it's been home to a lot of Lebanese. And I don't know, I hope it gets better life.
I will remind you that when we were growing up, Cyprus was called Little Beirut.
It was indeed.
Limassol, and
It
not
was.
Cyprus actually. It was Limassol. Limassol was called Little Beirut because of all the Lebanese people that were here. I grew up with Lebanese and Palestinian children in my
Yes.
neighborhood. I
Yes.
remember the ice cream van coming and all the children running and shouting "Teta Buza," which means grandmother ice cream. I
Ice cream,
remember them.
correct.
Yeah, I remember that. I learned a few swear words, innocent ones like "ente mejnun,"
Yes, correct. Ana
which
Sadet
means you are
Majnoon. I've become a bit crazy myself.
which means you are stupid. Yeah, in Arabic.
Yes.
I remembered them teaching me how to count up to 10. واحد اثنين ثلاثة أربعة خمسة ستة سبعة ثمانية
Well
تسعة عشرة.
done. Well
I
done.
still
Well
remember.
done. Well done.
And I listened to Fairuz as a child,
Our
and yeah,
cultures
Beirut.
are one and the same, aren't they?
Our
They're
cultures are
so.
our food. I mean, even our language, Tanaz.
Yalla.
The word for watermelon in Cypriot, in the Cypriot dialect, is baticha,
Batikhia. Yeah.
which is batikh in Arabic.
Exactly.
Whereas in Greek, it's karpuzi, which is from the
Garbus.
Turkish karpuz, which means with
Yes,
anyway. So even our language
it is.
um, is influenced, and this is what upsets me the most. that how shall I put it, in pursuit
Yes.
to align ourselves, and this is not the Cypriot people, I'm talking about the
No.
government at this moment
Governments.
in
Yes.
time,
Yes.
in the quest to align ourselves with the West, as if, and this by
As though
itself,
this should be the benchmark.
exactly.
It really
And
shouldn't.
there was an Egyptian director I was watching,
Yeah.
a little clip that they put on Instagram. That he was
Okay.
saying, "What do you mean civilization? Civilization was born here. Civilization was born in the East. You think you are civilized in Europe, in Lebanon, or in Egypt, or in the Arab world? If you go somewhere and there is a homeless person or somebody there that is poor." That poor person will go to his next door neighbor to find a piece
Sure.
of bread to give to you if you don't have anything, even though he
Sure.
doesn't have anything. Whereas
Sure.
in Europe, in the civilized Western world that we live in,
Civilized
if
indeed.
you see a homeless person on the street, we will
You
just
turn a blind eye.
pass him by as if
Yes.
and turn a blind eye as if nothing has
So
happened.
sad.
And that is civilization, and that
Yes.
is being
You know,
civilized. That is not
empathy. Yes.
civilization. That is
Empathy
not
lives in
being
the East.
civilized.
Empathy does not live in the
Yeah.
West. Empathy
So,
is not even a
and I
guest
mean,
in the West.
we had the president of the House of Representatives here,
Okay.
who actually came out and said that in if we have to choose between East and West, our direction is the West, as if the West is better than the East. That statement by itself is racist to start with. Secondly, you have
100%.
no idea geopolitically in which location you are. You're in the center of the Middle East and the Levant. You are the
Exactly.
crossroads between Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. And
Yes.
we should be proud of that.
For
And
sure.
one of the things that upsets me is that we are in the same way that Cypriots,
Yeah.
my generation of Cypriots, was brought up in school, not in Foley's,
Okay.
but in the
In
public
school.
school, to basically be ashamed of your Cypriot roots. You had to be more Greek than Cypriot, right? You
Yes.
remember that?
Yes. I do remember
Now,
that.
now it's like, no, we are West. We are Western.
Yeah. No.
No,
Why?
we are also East and Middle
Sure.
East. And these
Sure.
are our roots. And in the quest to align ourselves with the Western powers, we are basically crucifying our Middle Eastern neighbors and brothers and sisters, be it
Yes.
Lebanon or Palestine.
Sadly. Sadly. Very well said. You've.
And
Yeah.
that makes me sad.
It does make me sad. And my kids would laugh if they're going to watch this ever. I blame it on the lack of reading. I blame the demise of the world on the lack of wonder left in people. People don't want to read. People don't want to educate. The pen is mightier than the sword. And
Tanaz,
if you
is it
don't
the
look for the
people
right things
or
to read, then you will never have the right answers. Then you'll never learn from history. You can't just let it keep happening. It can't keep happening. We
but
have to.
Tanaz, I just the
Yeah.
thought, just the question. Is it the people or is it the powers that be?
The powers that be, sorry, I mean, it's because education has changed. I don't mean in
No,
the individual
because they
household.
want you, because
They
they
want to
want you
dumb you
to,
down.
yeah, they want to dumb you down so you don't think, so you don't have critical thinking. They want
Exactly.
to increase poverty and make you poor. So all
Exactly.
you are actually thinking of is how do you make ends
Paycheck to
meet and
paycheck.
how do
Yeah.
you last until the end of the month and where do you get food
Yes.
for your family?
Yes.
The food that, especially in the United States of America, where obesity is one of the
They're
biggest
they're
problems.
taking our dignity very openly, but they're taking the humanity and dignity of every single person in this world on the sly, slowly stealing empathy and souls and hearts from people, and people are just going with it. It's shocking. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
As in,
So
even though that they're killing us directly in your face, they are also killing humanity with everything they're doing on the down low. And Will there be hope for tomorrow, Melanie? You tell me. If we have more people like you.
I want to finish this. I want to finish this conversation on a happy note.
Yes, and me too.
Um,
May I say on one before? May I interject and say that as long as people are willing to have the heart to heart and are willing to have the conversations and are willing to listen to each other speak, there's still a hope for humanity. There's still hope. I will give the table back over to you, where it should have been to start off with.
no, no. Listen. What I will say is that social media, and I truly do believe this, social media was put into place to control us,
Yes,
and I do believe that.
yes,
However, I believe that it has backfired
yes.
because what is going on now in Lebanon and Palestine and
Sadly,
Gaza and the West Bank has been happening for ages. And
far
this is
too
what
long.
happens in Iraq. This is what happens in Afghanistan. And if it was not for Julian Assange and
Yes,
um,
yes.
um,
WikiLeaks. Yes,
his WikiLeaks, we would have not known what
correct.
happened in Abu Ghraib. However, we found out, but they tried to silence him. They
As they
cannot
always do.
silence.
No.
They cannot silence the thousands of people
Yes,
on social media because they are, like we are doing now,
yes.
transmitting live what is going on.
Correct, correct.
They can't, even though they shadow ban us, even they
Yes, they do
cannot
all
stop
the
it from
time.
coming up.
Little shadow ban
So
is never going to stop us.
what I'm expecting from people is, w- you know how we ask, how did people allow the Holocaust to happen and the Second World War to happen? You could say then that they did not know.
Ignorance.
You cannot say that you
No,
don't know now. So
agreed.
you cannot say I didn't know.
Agreed. And your
Yeah.
children will ask you, where were you when this was happening? And I hope that everyone can give an answer with a heart that I hope everyone can look in their children's eyes and answer that question. I know I can. I thank you, Melanie.
Um,
I
Thank you.
hope that we get to have this conversation again further down the line and say, look, changes have been made, and one day our kids will have this conversation and say it was worth going through the strife because look how good everything is now. I hope and pray to God that He hears us.
Thank you for sitting and having this heart to heart with me,
I love you
my
very much.
childhood friend. I love you.
I love you too.
And hopefully when we meet, things won't be as bad. I know you're trying to fly out.
Yes,
Um, and I'll see you when you're in Cyprus,
I will too. I look forward to it.
when you're back home
I look
to
forward
your
to it,
other
and
home.
I look forward to it. And thank you for giving us a voice, and thank you for your humanity and your empathy on all levels. You've always been like this. You're maybe the first person I've shared bread with per se over a dinner table at a very young age, independently of my parents, and I learned so much in that meal. Oats on the kitchen table, dinner time, taught me so much more than you'll ever know, Melanie. You live in my heart.
I can't believe you even remember that.
One of the most spectacular milestones in my life. I send you love, and I
Oh,
can't wait to
darling.
see you and the whole family and be back home
Um,
again. And yeah, to better tomorrows because stronger together.
that's the best note that we can
Yes,
end on. To better tomorrows and stronger together.
yes. I send you love. Stay safe. Take care.